Yeah, if you're in a situation between gel and Nebido, I mean, you're basically picking the better bad, which is a translation of Lithuanian saying, and that's really what it is. Some people respond great to Testogel. I've seen guys on Testogel with levels, similar to what you and I pull on 20% cream. They are unicorns, but it can definitely happen. I think the problem with Testogel is just the amount that you have to slather on yourself is just not really feasible, plus transference. So I think if you are in that situation, yeah, I think you're completely right. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future, when there's more generic availability of testosterone undecanoate, if that does become, and again, this is just mechanistic theory, we'll have to see how it plays out, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the future a once weekly shot of testosterone undecanoate replaces, testosterone enanthate and cypionate twice a week, because it's just more convenient. So one of the big issues I see with Nebido, Reandron, the undecanoate products, is not only that the injection frequency is way too far apart, but when you actually math out how much they end up being prescribed, per week, when you also account for the fact that the ester is heavier, it ends up being the equivalent of often well under 100 grams of testosterone enanthate or cypionate a week. And that can be a really big problem for a lot of guys, is not only are they crashing towards the tail end of their, every 3 months or every 4 months injection cycle, but they're not even getting enough on average, even if it was going to be smoothed out. And that can be a big issue, is one, them not being able to self-administer and divide it up, and two, not having enough prescribed to make it happen. And that's one of the big problems. And this is one thing I talk about all the time, is going, well, the ball has landed where it's landed. So if you're not that hypergonadal, let's say that your testosterone levels are borderline, and then you go on Reandron, you might end up spending a couple of weeks with more therapeutic testosterone levels, but then for the majority of the 3 or 4 month cycle, you might even be worse off than before you started. And that's what I see all the time. Same with Testogel. I see guys having worse levels on Testogel than before they started. And this is a huge problem. So if you can get, Reandron or Nebido prescribed in like a reasonable weekly dose, and you can divide it up weekly yourself, I think that can be a great solution. I don't think it's optimal based on what I've seen and the data and the studies, but I think if that's a situation you're in, I think that can be optimal. But I also think that guys in those countries might need to travel abroad to get some prescriptions sorted. And I don't know the laws and regulations of each country, but I know there are other, I know there are places in the UK that you can get it prescribed, and I know that there are places in Europe that you can get it prescribed. So potentially traveling and making a trip to actually get your testosterone sorted properly somewhere else in Europe. Again, I don't know if that's legal, if that can be done, but I would be looking into that option. One thing that I see happen a lot, not just in our group, but in groups across the board, is that guys will adopt a very defeatist mentality to this very early. They'll say, well, these are my only options and I can't do anything else. And they haven't looked into being like, well, can I travel and get it prescribed? Are there other options? So I think it's really important that if you are in a situation like this, where it's much trickier, and yes, Scandinavian countries, I mean, I'm in the Baltics. Like we have one andrologist in this whole country, and they give you Sustanon every 3 weeks. So like, I get it very well. But I also think that there are often solutions that just require a bit more strategic problem solving, and it can still be done legally, but it would vary country by country. So look into other options before you make the better bad compromise, would be my recommendation.
Yeah, sure.